Nerd morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy. This is Joseph.
Hello, everyone.
And this is the Nerd Morning Show, a place where we celebrate nerd culture. We're talking about books, comics, movies, video games, and more. And we have been going through a really epic journey through the Wheel of Time. There's definitely going to be a little bit of spoilers here, as there has been throughout this series. And we're heading to the end point with the books, which is a big deal.
It is huge.
Right, 14 books through the main series, a prequel, and now we're here at the last book with A Memory of Light, which is the big epic battle, the final battle, which it really does live up to its name.
Yes.
Before diving all the way through some of our thoughts on Memory of Light and the epic, final battle, let's talk about some of the new things that we've got from the show, as Amazon has been promoting the series, which comes out next month.
Yep. The new poster is quite a blessing. I'm sorry, the first one just wasn't great. It just didn't do anything for me at all.
With Marine against with the two pillar things.
And the
I love that image.
At the top, and then the Wheel of Time, and then the group at the bottom.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the first
Gotcha.
poster.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. I don't even think about that poster, so I guess that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, the one with Moraine. No, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, the new one with Moraine, that one's way better.
So
the other one just seemed old. It seemed like a 90s style poster or something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
trying to resonate with that older readership audience,
maybe, or something. Or they just really thought the merge roll was super cool, and it is super cool.
Yeah,
but I don't think it belongs on the poster. So anyway,
the merge roll feels like it's the big bad of the season. That's how they're kind of setting it up.
Yeah, it kind of is for the stories. It's the most dangerous thing they face. At least until the end of the book, hopefully the end of the season too. But
yeah.
Anyway,
the driving thing,
much better.
Yeah. Okay. What about that scene that we got with Moraine going and arriving essentially in the Two Rivers and announcing herself?
I watched it several times, and I kind of had different reactions each time.
The
first one was, oh wow, that's different, but it's kind of a good different. It makes sense because they have to squish stuff.
Yeah, that was my big thought. Yeah,
right. That worked great. I loved Lan's entrance. Taking the hood off. I'm Lan Mandragoran.
Yeah,
and this is Moraine. That just worked. It was, Lan is cool. You gave him a cool entrance. Love it. Right.
I was honestly really skeptical of the Lan Mandragoran casting, not because I don't think he looks the part or anything, but because he's one of the most clear images that I have, and I have to say that he looks a little bit different, and that's fine. It was totally okay, because how are they supposed to capture my headcanon, right? But that scene sold me on him. I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is absolutely great.
Nailed that. Yes.
Yeah. I think some of the shot by shot stuff was a little weird in it. As a film critic, I'm going, okay, this just pacing, things like that was a little peculiar. We're thrown into the middle of a sequence, right? The scenes and I don't know what came before or what's coming after. But yeah, so setting those types of things aside, because I can't comment really on them, the big difference is with Moraine and Lan. To me, that's one of the most iconic moments. Is they're out there, they're needing some help. They go call these boys seemingly out of nowhere for their help, and then they give them these coins, and it's very under the radar.
Right. That's a big difference.
Yeah, and this is a announcing. Also, a big thing that's different is she's like, I'm Aes Sedai, check out my ring, instead of being very under the table with it.
Right.
And they're also like, they see a ring and they recognize, oh, this is an Aes Sedai, where we don't get that sense in the Two Rivers. Like there would be a couple of people who would not necessarily admit that they know who would know. I think really like Rand's dad, you know, being noted there.
If he had seen her, he probably would have recognized.
Yeah, but most,
some of the older ladies, you know, might recognize, especially those who had gone to Tarn Ferry or somewhere else before. Possible, sure, but the book definitely gives the sense that nobody knew.
This is a land that is honestly kind of in the middle of everywhere in the book. Like if you look at the map, but also like it's secluded because of the mountains and stuff like that. And no one cares about the Two Rivers. No one has for a long time. And it's this little gem that's like sequestered from the world. And this is not what we get here. We get one that they know who the Aes Sedai are. And
okay, go ahead and finish your thought.
And like at least by recognition, there are at least individuals who go, oh, they know how to address an Aes Sedai. Moraine Sedai is what they call her, and things like that, which you would not know with just a passing interaction, with a just like go with the rumor mill of stuff. Like those types of things, like there is this cultural awareness that we get here, which is really helpful. Like particularly like you're saying, like we've got 8 episodes, we got to get through this and we can't get to, you know, several chapters worth of setting up the Two Rivers and establishing this before we take them away to show the difference. We got to get in there, bam, and go. And we also have to establish the significance of Moraine. It's the significance of the Aes Sedai really, really quickly for people to buy in a large scale audience. And those types of things change the dynamic of how you have to tell the story.
And the different storytelling medium too. You can do a lot of different things with prose in a book than you can in a visual medium.
One of the biggest things, and the thing I because like I'm a film guy, I love like that, and I also am a big person at adaptation. Like part of my schooling when I went to university was an adaptation theory. So I remember the first time through my book reading and them describing the Aes Sedai as being ageless and saying if this ever was adapted, I thought movies at the time, to a movie, you could never actually attain agelessness. That's something you could never really visually depict. And so there are some of those things that are these tells of their significance, their majesty, their mysteriousness that you can accomplish in prose, where I can imagine agelessness, but I can never see agelessness. And they can't have that. So they have to lose some of the specialness to the Aes Sedai. And so they're maybe trying to puff up the Aes Sedai's mysticism, significance, and they have to be able to compensate some of that because they can't do some of the things in the show that they can easily accomplish in the books.
Two things that really struck me at the end of that clip. First, the rings. I'm sorry, they're gaudy, they're horrible. I dislike the rings. It's so far from my personal thoughts and what I see as described in the book. I either imagine it just as a loop, right, with the serpent biting the other end of the tail.
Interesting. I like that design
either
idea.
That, or it's more of a crest with the serpent eating the tail on a crest. Either of those.
That's what I kind of think.
I thought of.
If you think of the legion of superheroes, the ones who time travel inside of the DC universe, and they have that like little like crest L, and it's just kind of a pressed thing. That's what I imagined, just with the Aes Sedai symbol. And
either of those would have been
more substantial.
It stands up like a foot above her head. That's gonna get in the way anyway.
but
I
it
don't love the
also is
rings.
supposed to be something that's very prevalent, very
Very
recognizable. And
easy,
yeah, and so they
right?
they pulled some of those elements, and
Eh, for
yeah,
that, it works.
yeah,
And the second thing I really loved about the end of that clip, when um, uh, Mistress Almira, nope, wrong one, Alvear,
uh-huh,
Mistress Alvear sees the ring, Aes Sedai, everyone
uh-huh.
goes quiet,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
And
It was
everyone is
really interesting.
staring because even though Backwater, even though they might be a little bit more well known or at least recognizable than what the beginning of the books shows,
Uh-huh.
they will have heard the stories,
Yes.
right?
Aes Sedai was a name to be feared in the Two
Right?
Rivers. They didn't
Yeah,
know, but they were a legend, and they were
right.
feared as much as the dark
Respected,
things.
but stay
Yeah,
away. Yeah, So everyone just that that
yeah.
hit me as dead on for that type of an intro to the characters in that
Mhm.
situation. That was done perfectly right, and I
Yeah,
love it.
which again, very, very different than the books,
Oh yeah.
but fitting with some of the tones and emphases of the book. What I think is interesting in this type of an entrance is the ramifications that it has to the thought process of
Mhm.
the other, the travelers, right? All of the boys and the girls is the Aes Sedai were not necessarily the monsters under the bed, right? But they were akin to them. And I think this
Uh-huh.
definitely influences how Matt approaches and thinks of the women,
Yes.
how Rand has a lot of fear and skepticism, and you're trying to manipulate and twist me, comes out of the ways that he was taught about Aes Sedai in his upbringing
Right?
in Rivers. And
Yeah.
so this shift is, I think, meaningful, and it will have to be resolved by how else they pursue their adaptation of the story, which it
Right.
looks like they are doing. And I think this scene really emphasizes. Brandon Sanderson said one time in an interview, someplace, somewhere, that a way you could think about this is another spinning of the wheel.
Right.
And this really confirms that type of approach, because it is different than the book.
Yeah.
And that's okay. One of the
Mhm.
things that he actually talked about in an interview, he compared Harry Potter. I guess he's a fan. Cool. And he talked about how he liked three more than he liked one and two, and because it was a looser adaptation. And he says that
Okay.
sometimes when you try to hit things right on the nose from the book, you can't quite hit it all the right ways, and so by trying to be 100% true to it, you maybe miss some of the things that you were trying to be able to accomplish. I think that was an interesting
Uh-huh.
interpretation. Obviously, this was a recent interview, so the series has been done. He probably has even test screened much of it,
Yep.
and I know that he has at least read all of the scripts.
Right.
And there were certain things that he loved, and there were certain things that he didn't necessarily love about the screenplay, which is
Yeah.
fair because we're going to all have those.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but overall he seemed very excited and favorable and happy about that, and I think that's a thing that we're going to have to be able to reconcile pretty quickly on. Is this is not going to be the exact same experience. Hopefully this captures the heart and all
Yes.
of those types of things of it,
Definitely.
because like again with that example that he posed, the third Harry Potter is actually my favorite of all of the movies. I really really like it, and I think that it actually is pretty far away from the book, particularly in comparison to the first two. And I think that
Definitely.
was actually, for me, like he was on point there. It was what made that movie sing to me.
Mhm.
And I go back to the books and enjoy those. I go to the movies, I enjoy those, all for different purposes. And anyways, his comparison really resonated with me, and saying this is how I'm going to try to approach this
Yeah.
series. And I think with that type of thought process, we're gonna we're gonna have a good experience. I'm gonna have a good
Right.
time.
Yeah. Definitely. So
There were a couple of other like character spots that they were dropping and probably are still dropping over the next little bit.
yeah.
One of the ones was with Logain.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, oh, he's this most powerful person, super feared. And we also got to see Logain kind of nobly dressed, kind of maybe through his
Yeah.
conquest. And then we got to see him in
Mhm.
shackles. And this is how we are first introduced him in the books, in shackles. But
Right.
we're probably getting his capture at the beginning of the
It
story.
really seems like it. Yeah.
Which is a cool addition. I think that's a scene that was referenced and talked about so much in the books, but we don't
Mhm.
actually get to witness. And
Right.
so getting to witness it would be a really cool thing. And I think that's interesting because seeing him in the cage at the very beginning with the first trailer, I was
Uh-huh.
like, I don't know if this guy is going to be able to pull off this noble heritage, this noble role, because he looks so downtrodden. Well, he's captured in a cage, so that's a really horrible way to judge that. And seeing him there, I'm like, okay, he could pull off the later parts of this story. And
Yeah.
that's a big thing because these characters grow and change and shift, and these characters have to be able to have that represented by the performances of the actors. And
Right.
so far, I've been like, any skepticism I've had on characterization, I've been disabused really quickly, which has been great, because I'm really hoping all the greatness for everybody, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And any of those that are um still kind of I really hope to be swayed by their performances in the series. So
Yeah, yeah.
yep.
For me right now, I don't really have any that I'm like really worried about it anymore. There's some that I'm not like fully like shown. One of the big ones that I'm really hoping they do well with is their choice for Pot and Thane.
Yeah. We
Um,
haven't seen Fane other
yeah,
than the stills announcing the actor.
yeah.
So
Um, but Pot and Thane has to be able to look really noble and awesome in some respects because this is the inherited body that he gets.
right.
It's supposed to be also kind of terrifying and Gollum-esque, not
Yeah.
necessarily to that scope, but like you've
There
got
are
to,
parts in the middle. Yeah.
right, that
Uh-huh.
he's got to like look kind of scary and demonic in some ways, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
so
Oh yeah.
this character has to be able to really exemplify a wide range of physical appearance.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't know, we'll
We'll
see. I
see.
just haven't seen much
Right.
show wise, right, other
Oh
than the
yeah.
actor, which I don't know, like could work, so it's great. I just haven't seen what they're doing and I want to know, so
Hmm.
I have to wait and
Yeah.
watch and see. So
Yeah. Yeah. Good
um
stuff.
yeah, well, I'm excited. It's again, coming in next month, and yeah, I'm ready. I'm super
Hmm.
ready. Well, let's dive in
Excuse me.
to the story here. A
Yes.
Memory of Light, the last book. We kind of like talked a little bit about the council and how that was going to be influencing the final battle, and we talked about Moraine coming in and all of those types of stuff. But after
Yep.
the very end of there, like Rand's like, we're gonna get this Sean Chan to be on board, I'm gonna be able to do all these things, and he's like exuding all of this like confidence. And then we have to like head into the final battle and all the preparations of that.
Right.
um
I, and the setup for it is just so interesting and clever.
yeah.
How uh, first Rand is willing to say, "All right, you guys can pick your own battle leader."
Mhm.
Um, Elaine becomes the one in charge, overseeing the 4 battlefronts, which is
Yeah.
just insane to start with.
uh,
And he's willing to let that go, and
yeah.
that's impressive. A character arc for him to be
Yes.
able to let go.
Yes. If this happened a couple of books earlier and the final battle happened, that would not have gone that way.
No,
Just not at all.
no,
Um,
he wouldn't have been able to trust. that
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how they set up the 4 great captains to be able to go through these 4 different battlefronts.
Hmm.
And it's really interesting also to see how throughout the Great Battle we have so much loss of
Yes.
land, of characters. Like, this is the epic
It,
battle of epic proportions that they've been
mhm.
waiting and prophesying about for thousands of years. If this was not a big battle, if this was ultimately a skirmish, then it would
It
not be
wouldn't
able
have
to hold up.
felt right. It wouldn't have
Yeah,
felt right. Yeah.
yeah. One of the things I think that they were able to pull off with this, which I thought would have been hard to do, is when I think of great epic battles, like when I think of like the Great World Wars or things like that, where you do have these battles in multiple fronts, but also the story that take years, right? Battles that
Yes.
take years. And
I
they
agree.
kind of do have a long period of time here, but they make it so we have this last great thing, this give it all right here type of moment
Uh-huh.
where they kind of reason out, oh, this could be a big prolonged war, but we're not telling that type of a story. It's not going to be that. And so we've logicked our way through to make it be this shorter war, which does still
Uh-huh.
take quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I
um
think it's like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of solid fighting.
yeah.
Something it's no more than 3 weeks from what I was figuring.
Mhm.
So, but Rand, he's only fighting for a couple hours. Lucky guy, you know.
Yeah, lucky guy. Yeah.
Lucky guy. So, um, but yeah, how it's going through, I was trying to kind of keep track of how long they're fighting,
Hmm.
and it is weeks, but not too much more than that for sure.
Yeah.
How they decide we're going to fight these different battles, these different fronts. This one's going to be fought this way. This one needs to be fought this other way,
Hmm.
and then the attack on the psyche
Yes.
of the 4 great captains from
Hmm.
Teleon Rayad. That's one I didn't really see coming,
No,
uh, and
no, which was cool.
how clever it was to not just make them fail, but to make them just make little mistakes
Hmm.
here and there and not really recognize it beyond a little mistake
Yeah.
until they are confronted with it and they look back and are like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
And
that
what
was
what was really cool about that is you have this really hitting a couple of bells the right way, multiple ways. So you have one, you have the Forsaken. What are the Forsaken doing? Well, they're going to be doing what they've always done, which is manipulate, push, those types of things. That's how they fought all the way before. And
yep.
so them jumping out and be like, we're going to battle in the front of the lines of this war just didn't make sense. You have a couple
Yeah.
of ones who do, and they have done that before. But you
Right.
have some of these people who battled in the shadows, and they still are battling in the shadows. So it made a lot
Yes.
of sense narratively and the characterization. Also, the Dark One, his whole goal the entire time has been as much destruction as possible.
Yeah.
And if they were to totally flip the war and make it so it's this resounding win, that doesn't serve his actual purpose.
Right.
His purpose is the most destruction on all fronts. He wants
Right.
to destroy his servants as much as he wants to destroy anyone else, create as much. So the prolonging that this creates,
Yep.
the victories that they are losing, and also not losing so much that it's overwhelmed,
Yep.
just fits his character
Uh-huh.
perfectly. And I
Yeah.
really resonated with that idea because it fits everybody. And it just seemed so realistic to
Hmm.
everybody. It wasn't just kind of like, oh, we're going to throw this twist here. Um, it just was, to
Yeah.
me, the right thing.
Especially the way the character arc has been building.
Mm,
And you can say that for practically all of the characters, all of these arcs
yeah.
through the entire series. they all land true.
Yeah.
And that's very satisfying because it
Yes.
would be really disappointing to get to the end there and it all be different. It all change just to get the conclusion they wanted.
Hmm.
Right? I love how that doesn't happen, and that had to be so hard, not only for Robert Jordan to set it up, but then for Brandon Sanderson to pick up where he left off and carry it through to the finish. That that's just applause for doing that so well. That's one of my great pros
Hmm.
for this book and this series, but especially this book, is how well the characters end. They
Hmm.
had great story arcs and they all finished true rather
Yeah.
than some other, oh, we got to make this fit right here and this is going to work.
Yeah.
We have a lot of deaths, like you said, even some
Yeah.
main character deaths, some secondary character deaths that we might not have thought of
Hmm.
dying or dying on scene,
Hmm.
right? Uh, really also helped hit home. And kind of my
Right.
last,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Because this has got to have weight to it. You've got to
right,
have feelings in this battle, and that helped deliver that really, really powerfully.
right. Kind of my last main thought for this battle itself is even though it's the vast majority of the book, it kind of shifts around enough, giving us lots of different perspectives and points of view that it doesn't feel like this big slog of, oh, they're fighting and dying, oh, they're fighting and dying. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We
Yeah.
don't really get that. It's, yes, this is huge and tremendous and all of these horrible things, but narratively, it fits really well. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's giant battle scene, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's kind it doesn't negate anything from a good story.
Yeah.
It's more the background for this story.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because you do have these characters who are working on different goals and ideas and are pushing things like they're doing what characters do, and it just happens to be in this environment, and that, like, that's a really good point. I think of different books, and some that have really kind of pushed the battle a little too heavy without taking breathers or breaks as much, and it does have a different tone than that experience. So
mhm.
um, let's hit some of these deaths. Um,
Oh,
so
sadness.
I know. But we do have a lot of big characters.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, for me, the biggest one was Egwene.
Hmm.
That was not expected. The very
Yeah,
first
the
time I
first
read it,
time, yeah,
I was like, no, like Swan
yeah,
dying was tragic. I was
but
there for her
uh-huh,
and all that, but it was like understandable, right? But you had
uh-huh,
like the Two Rivers folk, right? And you
right,
expected the Two Rivers folk to move forward beyond this because they have been the characters.
right. And
And her ending is epic though.
it is. It's fittingly epic. Again, with the correct story arc for these characters, she believed in being Amerlin. She believed in the fight. She believed in what she was doing so much. She was willing to sacrifice. And one of my favorite parts is right before she goes into that final battle to die, she
Hmm.
releases um, her second warder.
Hmm.
Oh, ugh, I forget the name
The
right off the bat.
the the
Um,
Shan
the Shan
Chan
Chen lady.
wind
Li-
shipless
yes, Lylwyn. Lylwyn,
Lywin. She's got a couple of
right?
names,
Right.
so you know.
So, but yeah, she severs that connection to let her go, which for how much Egwene had come to hate the Shan Chen, that little moment of mercy
Hmm.
just speaks a lot to her personal growth too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then her having kind of the Amerlin flame, I think is what she had called her new
Mhm.
weave, which was this healing weave, which was
anti-balefire.
which was
Yeah.
really cool and also significant because Balefire was starting to crack the world. And
Yeah.
that's again some of the things of the weight of this final battle is if you
Yeah.
can literally see the world starting to like disassemble,
disintegrate.
yeah, then this is a high stake experience. And that added a lot of weight to the battle. And then her weave to help combat the Bellfire and was really, really powerful and interesting. And what an end for her character.
Yes, definitely.
I think that other things that are like big in the, we've got a couple of other like side characters, B-level characters that die, which were really significant and meaningful. Several of them who tried to go face off the big bad
Gawain, Galad, Lan. So honestly, I was so shocked that Lan survived. The ending, the way it was written, that he gave himself, he sheathed the sword, was just so perfect for Lan that I was surprised, but he wasn't yet dead. I'm like, but yay Lan, but
oh my gosh. The emotions right now. That scene is one of the greatest things of the entire series. Like it might be my favorite scene of the entire series. I've mentioned how Lan is my favorite character. And this scene right here is what really solidifies that, because you have this Forsaken who's just taking out everybody. This is a contest of powers to him, and everyone is beneath him. And these greatest characters of the entire land, the greatest warriors, go up and face him, and he just downs them one at a time without really much effort. And here Lan goes, this has got to be done. And so he goes there, he gets the job done, and he like, it's so cool. And the way that it's written is just really, really powerful. And it does like capture that whole thing, sheathing the sword, which is a message that he shared with Rand at the beginning, and has been this thing, and he just kind of lives up to all of his ideals. And him being able to also, for Rand to see that, that was, I think, the thing when he sees that Lan was alive. That was the thing that I think tipped the scale to him to start seeing the heroicism of everybody. And then that kind of like starts with the message of the whole book, or the whole series, because we get here, this isn't just about me. This is about all of the characters' stories. And he started to describe that. And I get emotional every time I think about it, but I freaked out with my first time going through that when Rand has that discovery of this isn't my story. And that was huge. That was absolutely huge. And for me as well, like the first time I read it, it was Rand's story, because all of the stories that I'd really read before was a character who's had this story. And when they were saying that, I was like, everything fell into place. The whole thing. It wasn't his story. The whole time it wasn't his story. It was everyone's story and everyone's journey. And to me, that was so big. This was a story of an age and an era. And Lan doing that just captured all of that for me. And it was a big, big thing. So that was a huge moment for me.
It's yes. So good. And multiple others, a few that that didn't surprise me. Gawain didn't surprise me. The Swan didn't really surprise me. The method,
there's a lot of
I didn't
foreshadowing
expect,
for that.
Um, uh, but yeah, all of the deaths and then the success and everything. How Rand's body, we can count that one. Rand's body died,
Yeah.
right? And that to everyone except the three women,
Hmm.
he was dead.
Yeah. Well,
So
and Katsune.
that's true. She's just smart, but yeah,
Yeah. Um, what that was really interesting as well, because there was foreshadowing of the pyre scene in like book 1 or 2.
yeah,
Like this is something that was set up and established, and something that Robert Jordan had in his head the very beginning.
yep.
And there was a lot of these very end parts that were actually straight up Robert Jordan.
Oh yeah,
Where Brendan Sanderson said this was already written, not even that I just had notes for it. Like this was stuff that was
yeah. Like the
completely built.
entire last chapter, if I remember correctly, he
Yeah,
said what was done.
yeah.
So
And was that mean there's a couple of adjustments or whatever, like tiny things? Like I imagine there probably was, but
sure.
really, what we get there is Robert Jordan,
Yep.
and I think that was really interesting. And other characters, like from the two rivers that we get here at the final battle, uh, Perrin will hit him. Very interesting. He goes into the Wolf Dream, has a really, I think, cool paralleled story of him going into the Wolf Dream to battle this side
Yeah.
of the battle. And he's done that throughout the stories, which has been really interesting. That foreshadowing, that setup, a
Hmm.
couple of times where he's had to go in there and do that. He's supposed to be the king of the wolves and all that kind of stuff, and we just like don't get that on the earthly plane, right? But
Uh-huh.
in the spiritual plane, this other world experience, he has learned a lot. Like he was doing things that the wise ones and the Aes Sedai who trained there
Right?
could not believe were possible.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And then finally to see him go there and battle that, and protecting uh, Rand, giving encouragement and wisdom and things like that he had to be able to do, and all of those things that he accomplished was huge.
Yes.
Um, and he's the like character I think that just doesn't get like some of the like recognition of the epicness of him in this final battle.
Yep. I can
All
totally agree with that.
all
Yeah.
like under um like it's not a scene, and also the things that he does um are like he's not slaying thousands and doing
Right.
all these huge scale stuff, but everything that he's doing is really targeted and
Hmm.
specific
Yes.
and very meaningful. So it's an
Right.
interesting hero experience with him.
Yeah. And we shouldn't forget him, and that sometimes those smaller but very targeted things are what really make a difference.
Yeah.
If Slayer had gotten to Rand, he probably would have been able to jump in and kill him.
Hmm.
Problem, yes.
Yeah.
Um, so his contribution was no less than Matt leading, in the end, leading all of the armies in the
Yes.
final do or die
Yes.
battle.
Yes, which
So,
is right where I wanted to be able to shift into.
aha.
Let's talk about that. This was to me one of the biggest satisfying growths of a character, because we've had this set up forever. We've
Mhm.
had this prepped. We had this designed, and we get to see him as that stinking hero he was trying to avoid,
Yep.
and this epic general, and he has through this like of claiming the reins of the battle, um a lot of skepticism
Uh-huh.
across the board, and he over and over again proves himself, even though it's like some of these characters they should know by now, and
Right. Oh,
that's
Matt's just a scoundrel and scallywag. Shut up.
right, you know better,
Right?
you know better.
Yeah.
and it's, I don't know, it's interesting to see. But he does a really cool job with it, and it's a very satisfying part with the story.
Oh yes. Epic.
Yeah.
Epic is Matt.
We kind of hit a little bit towards the very end there. Rand's body dying, his soul being transferred, him sealing the I guess the bore, the breaking there. And one of the things I think with that whole battle was very, very interesting, huge, meaningful, powerful, the whole different alternate reality scenes, which is a thing that we've had since book 2. And all of that stuff was really cool. It felt a battle on a whole different level and a whole different side. So that was amazing to me, and it fit perfect for the battle that Rand was supposed to do.
Right. I like how his was less a battle of swords and strength and more a battle of will and for the people to, and I really love how the contrast of, if you make everything bad, well, that's bad. But if you make everything good, like it's forced to be good, that's just as bad. You can't truly have good without the choice to be good. And I love how that was illustrated.
Huge, powerful. I really like also here we have him again the payoff of everything that he's been going through, because he had to grow and shift and change to develop to the character who could see all those things and value all of those things. And that's this really cool battle here. And then he also sees this great big bad, this powerful Satan-like character using, Shaitan, that's who they pulled it from, right? That was very, very on the nose, right? And seeing like, you're not as big and scary as you think you are. You can't force this to be the only way. Like, there was this really interesting ideas there, which I thought was pretty fascinating. And ultimately with this battle, he uses all like the both of the powers, but maybe not even that, to seal the bore. It seems like he kind of had like the web of the weaving of the self, the Wheel of Time's essence, like that was what he grabbed hold of, which was both Sidene and Sidar and something beyond, in order to seal it. And this, I think, is super, super significant, because before he used Sidene, that's how he sealed it, right? One side of the power. And here he's using not only both the sides of the power, but something beyond it.
We're kind of hinting at the creator's power is kind of what I felt that was hinting at. Which then heals that out. And I think, and then he's changed, obviously, when he gets out. Like, when the big thing and the big mystery and all the wonderings are when he's okay, it's after the end of the battle, he's riding off and he's got like a pipe, and he lights the pipe with a thought. Right, not by the power, because he doesn't have access to Sidene or Sidar, but he has the access to a power of some magnitude. And there's a lot of speculation here, but nothing definitive. But it's so interesting, and it just leaves you wondering. But he's got this brand new body, and he is able to see the world or whatever he wants to do. And he has access to a power that seems to be bigger, stronger, and more meaningful than anything else. But also, he is no longer Taviran. So he's not tied down, because these were all the things that he was wrestling with. And now he's got like godlike power beyond human capacity, maybe. He's no longer tied to the wheel.
in the same way.
Right.
And he also doesn't have any kingdoms to hold him back, as well, which
Right.
is the thing that he found as a burden.
Yeah.
And so like I'm kind of like, is he gonna be like a flautist who's going to just travel around, see everything?
Right.
Is he going
Just
to be the
become a
next Jane
gleeman.
Foster who goes out and has his own like adventures, but are just kind of like this exploring and seeing everything? We don't know, and that's where we could like wonder and speculate, which is going to be stuff that we're going to actually do.
We'll dive into
next time. Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't know, really interesting ending there, very powerful. A lot of other things we can talk about this ending. Any other last minute thoughts though on this?
It's just such a satisfying conclusion, especially for such a long story. You go through a standard trilogy of stories, and if it's well written, it's satisfying and everything. But 15 books to have
Yeah,
a satisfying conclusion just feels so good.
yeah,
So,
totally. And this is an end that's so satisfying that when I finished it, right, I'm like, I'm ready to go again. I've read this series now several times through. You've gone through a couple times as well. Like, this is a series that we've returned to and we love. And
yep,
it's a huge undertaking. And when I finish it, I'm like, I'm ready for it again.
right,
And
right.
that is the feeling I get when I finish this like millions of words experience. I'm looking at here, I pulled up totals before, with 300,000 pages here, 300 or 300 300 words here, like all that kind of stuff. This is a it totals up with the prequel and everything, 11,898 pages, and this is I think that was the paperback count. Hardback pages a little bit lower, around 10,000, which is hard to count because the page numbers.
Which issue? And yeah, right.
The word count is obviously they're going to be consistent. We're hitting, according to this, 4,400,000 plus. Like,
yeah,
that's not a small thing. That's huge. And that's the story. And I'm here like, let's go again. And if you aren't like burnt out by the end, then you did a great job with the story, right?
Right. Seriously. Yes.
Well, thank you, Joseph, so much for sitting down, being able to do a chat. Going through this read through was so much fun for me.
Oh,
so
I loved it. So enjoyed it.
For everyone who's been watching or listening along with these conversations, let us know what your thoughts are of this series, like overall, and any other thoughts you think. We hit like only a couple of things from this book because it's a huge story, right? There's
so
much to discuss. So what are the things that you feel like are really meaningful that we didn't yet get to cover? Let us know, put those in the comments. You can find more Nerd Morning content at nerdmorning.com/links, and find Nerd Morning on different platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and more at Nerd Morning. Thank you guys so much again. Thank you again, Joseph. And we'll catch you all next time.
See ya.